Welcome back to the Balance Bully podcast for ambitious women in business and a few brave men. I'm your host, Naketa Ren Thigpen, excited to be with you as always. Woo! Hunty! The last few months have been so special. And as we end this year and get ready for what we all pray is a magical rebound from that ex-relationship we had with 2021, I'm the first one standing in line with my single rules to say, marry me 2022 so you can be different from everything that I just had to go through this previous year. All of you listeners who have been following me have known about the gap, the self-lovecation from hell that turned into all kinds of crazy. And I'm so super excited that I get to move into this next element with this phenomenal breath of fresh air. I have to say, this woman is pure peace. You know, you ever meet someone that you're just like, oh, I feel calm, I feel relaxed, I feel connected to my inner spirit. That's who I'm talking to right now, who you have the privilege of meeting today on the Balance Bully podcast. I would like you all to welcome my good friend, Kami Guildner. She is a connector, a storyteller, an extraordinary, underline that word, extraordinary woman who is leading other change makers that are influential and impactful all across this world. Kami, welcome to the Balance Bully podcast. How are you today?
Oh, I am fantastic, Naketa. Thank you so much for having me on. As I'm so honored to be your first guest back, and this is going to be such a good conversation. I adore you just as much, and it's how exciting to be here with you. Thank you
so much. So, Kami, while I was off trying to figure out my life and get my health right, you were out changing the world. Tell us all a little bit about what you had going on the last, 6 months or so of this year.
Well, I just held my 7th annual Extraordinary Women Ignite conference, and we were back live this year. We had to go virtual in 2020. We are back live in 2021. And it was so wonderful to be back in a room full of so many extraordinary women. We had amazing speakers. We had amazing women in the room, really ready to step up to make an impact on the world. And there was just so much energy in that space, right? I mean, it was just the space was filled with just this vibe that was incredible. And because everybody was just so hungry for those face-to-face connections.
Yes, you already know we were talking off air. I'm like super looking forward to next November.
Yes.
But you do some other stuff before then too, like because I know you love your horses and you have more than one annual retreat. So
I do. I have multiple retreats over the year, and it's something about this slowing down and really tuning in, right? Tuning in, hearing. So I do work with my horses. I have an equine vision journey retreat, which helps my clients really slow down and tune into the space of that inner wisdom and, break through, something that might be there, something that might be right in the way that's keeping them from going to that next level. The horses are fantastic for that. We had a wild woman writing retreat, like a book writing retreat in the foothills along this creekside inn. It was just fantastic. So we had all sorts of things. And then my mastermind community has just been rocking and rolling. I mean, I actually counted up all of the amazing things that my mastermind community has been doing. And I don't have the stats in front of me, but it's like they were on hundreds of stages. They reached thousands and thousands of people with their message, with their impact. And it's just so rewarding to see what's happening with them.
Oh, I love that. This is why you exude peace, right? Like you are walking your talk and preaching not only to other people how you can live your best life by tuning in and pulling out your best gifts, but you're also living it, which I super appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right before I went off the grid, Kami, I saw something that you had posted on Facebook, which I know is your primary platform.
It is. Mm-hmm.
And it was something like there was a big black bear outside
there
your
was.
house.
Do
you remember that?
Totally. And it was the coolest thing. I walked out the door and there was a bear walking down the street right above our house. And it was big. It was a really big black bear. And it was like, oh my gosh. And my horses were in the front yard. And I was like, they're not even seeing this bear. And I know if they see this bear, they're going to like bolt.
Right.
They didn't see it. They never saw it. I stood there and took all kinds of pictures, and the bear turned around and posed perfectly for me, which was so much fun. So yes, I live in a very beautiful place where I've got wildlife around me, and it's super cool.
No, I was cracking up because as soon as I saw it, I was like, not Black people. No, no.
You're like, I don't want that bear around me.
I don't want that. I can't wait to see Kami, but I don't want that. I don't want that.
No, I was totally thrilled. That's the Colorado girl in me where I was like, oh my God.
But you know what it really made me think of is as I was looking at it and I had my first like jokey moment, like, not for Black people. No, no ma'am, no ma'am. After I had that like silly moment, I was thinking like, you know what? This makes so much sense. You have access to things that you've created and curated and cultivated in your home and your surroundings. But there is always an impending danger that's really a matter of your perspective, right? Like so you didn't go out like, fear, oh no, call the Rangers, right? Like you didn't do that. You were like, okay, this is interesting. I'm glad the horses didn't go all wild because that would have been a whole
It would have been a whole nother thing. You're right.
Right? And knocking over your trash cans and all the things that, bears do. But it really gave me, because I'm always looking at a metaphysical reason for something.
Yeah.
And it just really made me look at you as a human, as a connector, as a storyteller, and this being more fodder and more fuel for everything that you're doing in the world. So I'm curious for all of the listeners, those ambitious women in business and those few brave men, because we have a few of those that are listening in, what created this space for you within yourself that made you want to journey towards helping other change makers? Because you could have just kept it all to yourself.
Oh yeah, and I could have stayed in the corporate world and all of the stuff that I did. And so I always say that I was very blessed in the year of 2008. Two major gifts. One, I got laid off. Two, it was the year 2008 when there wasn't a lot of VP and marketing jobs around. So that being laid off, I would not have made the leap, right? I just would not have made that leap. It was very comfortable. I was, it was a good thing.
Yeah.
But the universe had very different plans for me, and I'm very grateful for that. So there was this, and it's always a journey as entrepreneurs. It's never like we just like make our first jump and then we stay wherever we're at, and it's entrepreneurs.
Definitely not.
So very early on, I was working with women, a lot of executive women who were hearing this calling for something more, kind of something, they were like, I want some of what she has. But what happened was so many of my clients were actually taking the leap out of the corporate world and becoming entrepreneurs. And that to me was like, oh, I can really help them grow and even make a bigger impact, right? I mean, so it's always, for me, it's been about impact. Years ago, I wrote a purpose statement that was, I wanted to impact 1 million women around the world, helping them step into their passion, their impact, how they want to make a difference in the world. Yeah. And that to me is like, it's a driver that gets me stretching into places that are uncomfortable.
Yes.
Right? Those places that I go, ooh, very early on in my entrepreneur's world, I was terrified of getting on a stage. Did not want to go there. Yeah, and so I made every excuse not to do that. And when I wrote that goal to reach 1 million women, I was like, wait a minute, I will never reach 1 million women if I don't get over this fear and start going one to many. And so I had to go through a whole big journey to get over that and, find my own voice, my own presence. But every time we stretch into someplace new, we're stretching into new goals. And it's you get more comfortable with the stretch, but it doesn't mean the stretch doesn't come.
Absolutely. It's still uncomfortable, even though you're used to it or building that muscle. But I heard you say something super important, because I'm like a magical synthesizer of information. And I heard you say, like, I was good. I was doing a good thing. I was doing good work, like, success portfolio wise, bank account, all that. Yeah. I was good, but it wasn't the greater.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was so much more. I mean, it was like, if you would have told me 15 years ago I'd be doing what I'm doing today, I would have told you we're crazy. I just would have said, no way. No way. And, the other part of that was I was very linear thinking. And, 15 years ago, I was very linear thinking. I was in the corporate world. I had that I knew how to do the linear stuff. And I would have told you that I was very left-brained, which if I do the test, I am not left-brained. I am right-brained. so there was this whole discovery of me that came with that. And what became much more magical about my work is the spiritual, soulful side of me, to be able to help people tap into that inner knowing, that strength within. I mean, all of that
Yes.
is so different than what I used to do.
Mhm.
So, what I learned back in my corporate days is really valuable to me, but the
Mhm.
magic really comes from the that spiritual side of me. And I remember journaling at one point, and journaling about what's my business want to be right now. And and what I got a very clear message that's a spirit driven business. And I'm like, what?
Mhm. Mhm.
I was like, no way, no way. And it was like,
Yeah.
no, this is what I'm hearing. And so the more I started stepping into that, the more I just started really, I mean, I've always had extraordinary women in my community, but it's like, who's being drawn into my space right now, who I get to play with, who I get to,
Yeah.
interview, who I get, all the things. It's just, I
Yeah.
feel very, very blessed about the amazingness of the women in my communities.
Now I love this because as you were talking, I was thinking how challenging this must have been for the inner tussle that you had to go through as thinking you were a left dominant brained person, right? Which, I get it because when you're in corporate and that's the driver and those are the circles,
Yep.
right, that you're
Yep.
keeping and that you're thriving
Right.
among,
Hmm.
it makes so much sense. But then to really realize that you weren't home this whole time, you thought you were home when you were really just visiting
Yeah.
that other space, that other part of your life.
Yeah.
And now to feel called home to a
Yeah.
bigger part of yourself, this other place that maybe privately you were aware of your intuition and
I don't even know if I was privately aware, right?
see, that's so interesting to me though. Like, so what was that tussle like? Because
Oh, it
that's
was.
beyond, a
And
struggle.
I think early on for me, there was like this awakening, and where I really found it was with nature, with my
Hmm.
horses, which was something that I had learned as a young girl. I mean, I really
Hmm.
knew how to go out into nature and play, and I'd go play by the ponds and make mud cakes and just be in my own little space, right? Um, so I had that early on, and when I got laid off, about a month after I got laid off, my dad passed away.
Oh, I'm
And I
sorry.
wrote a poem about the things that I learned from my dad.
Mhm.
And so much of it, when I wrote that, really took me home to this space of, wait a minute, I've lost this really important part of me, right? This part that loved nature. I mean, I would go do my nature trips,
Mhm.
but I didn't
Mhm.
live in nature every day,
Right.
right? It was a different level of it, right? And so
Yeah.
I wasn't taking time. I wasn't pausing in nature, right?
Mm.
And so when my dad passed and I wrote that poem and started just to slow down, I had space to
Mhm.
slow down because I didn't have a job, right?
Right.
And there was all of this awakening inside of me. And that's where, Kami, I started to see how the dots would start to connect. I started to see how when you found alignment for yourself, that the universe just like stepped right in and opened up new opportunities, saying, okay, here you go. This is the direction you're
Always.
meant to go.
Always.
And it's where the magic started to happen.
Yeah.
And I think I'd lost a lot of that magic that we know as a young girl,
Mhm.
but I was able to reconnect back to it as we evolved into as I evolved, not as I evolved into what I was going to, continue to grow and become.
Yeah. I'm hearing underneath all of it that you were a pretty willful, that's my nice language, a really willful young person.
Yeah.
So in order for you to get back on track, on a track that you didn't know you were off of, right, on
Yeah.
your spiritual journey,
Yeah.
that literally the universe had to shut things down
Yeah.
for you to hear probably what was trying to get through the whole time.
Totally.
And so 2008 was literally like, oh, you're not going to listen? You're not going to listen to me, the universe that's
Yeah.
telling you, oh, okay, well, we're
Let's
going to
just
shut it
pull the
all
rug
down.
out. Yeah. Totally.
Which
Totally.
is what I think sometimes we sometimes we have to have, even though we don't want it, because we have no idea what's on the other side of that storm, those hurricanes, those tsunamis, but we need it. You know, you and I were talking before the call about all the summer and all the things all the stuff, right? And I do know that as much as I was furious and frustrated and because I'm rebellious and willful,
right?
In my core too.
You and me both.
Exactly, which is why we're here, right? You guys can't see us, but we're like doing the eye to eye thing.
Yeah.
Because we're so eye to eye. It was absolutely what I needed. And I wasn't really sure why the lesson was coming, because I am not afraid of me time and self-care and self-love. But there was something that I was missing. And I'm clear on it now that I just really needed to pull it all in and to allow my body to heal from so much of the previous trauma that I had just kind of, zipped up and move through, because that's what ambitious women do, right? You're extraordinary, you're ambitious, you're used to going, being strong and just moving. And even when you take those slow down moments for your circle, for the community that you're in, it's still not enough to recover from all of the years that you suppressed and pushed.
And then you add
down.
2020 into the mix of everything. And I mean, that was just a whole nother realm of it, right? And I actually believe that 2020 happened for us in a way that did get us to slow down. Because I can think back to, things I was doing that were kind of the treadmill kind of thing. And suddenly that treadmill wasn't even there. It was gone.
Right.
And so, I don't know. I know that I personally still always have that calling to keep slowing it down, because I can step into the doing really well, just like I know you can.
Because it's your default.
Yeah, it's the default, and then we forget. And how do we come back to this? And I'm even starting to think about 2022, and I know that that's one of the things that's showing up for me is, how do I step into the year 2022 and keep making more space for myself? And, what does that flow look like? These are the kinds of questions I'm asking myself right now. I feel very blessed and very fortunate that, that so much of the pieces are in place to be able to ask those questions and to think about, what is it that I want to design for the future? It's interesting. My son just purchased a company in Oregon. Yeah. And, he is in the doing mode, right? Because he had to be. And I keep saying, you get to design this in any way that you want to, right? And that's a question that I love to ask others, but I need to ask it myself as well.
Right. No, that's such a powerful point. I always get into this tussle with, old Naketa 2.0 version of Naketa, 10.0 version of Naketa, and the Naketa that I'm becoming, which is absolutely 100.0 version. And it doesn't stop there, right?
100.0, I love it.
100.0, like all in. And I look at what does all in look like for me now that I'm wiser. And I understand that I don't have to have 18-hour days. And right? Like all the things, because we know it. And everyone listening to this, you're listening to the Balance Boldly podcast because you know how important it is to balance, so you don't lose everything else that you've been bold in your life trying to get, right? Like you've acquired not just the things, the materials, like that's all, as the old people would say, pish posh, right? Like that's all pish posh is replaceable. But your loves, your deeper relationships, your sisterships with your friends that you never get a chance to talk to because you were so busy on the hamster wheel that Kami's talking about. With all of it, we get it, and we want to know how to slow down. There's no one answer. It's really about listening, which is what I hear Kami saying, listening to the voice that's inside of you, that's bringing you back to yourself before you, dare I say, got corrupted by the world's expectations of you, right?
And that's it. I like that you pointed to is that, we put the world's expectations on us, and we put our own expectations on ourselves.
Come on.
And the question I think that's really interesting is, what if we were to say, well, it's take the expectations away and just say, okay, what do I want it to be? How do I want it to flow? How do I want to be? And how do I design that? Right? I mean, that's such a beautiful question to ponder and to play in as we look into a new year. It's like, okay, I had to create this in any sort of way that I'd like to, because that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur is we get to define that.
Absolutely. You get to create your own reality.
Yeah.
And for all of you that are listening that may be what I would consider careerpreneurs, right? Like you have entrepreneurial spirits, but maybe you work inside of other conglomerates and you're just trying to add in your value in the best way possible. There's still a way for you to create your reality too. There's some other kind of, there's some paint on the wall that you can't change because the landlord said you can't, but it doesn't mean that you can't buy different types of furniture and make things work so the space becomes as close to yours as possible, even with the weird salmon color paint that you don't love. You're still able to make pieces of that your own until you're ready, if you become ready, because entrepreneurship is not for everyone, and that's not disrespect to like entrepreneurs are better than or anything. Yeah. Entrepreneurs are just different humans. That's the reality. We are different humans for sure. But it doesn't mean that you can't still have your impact and be a change maker. Kami's first clients were executives that wanted to tap into their entrepreneurial spirit. Yeah. It may be existing in you too. You just haven't had the right guidance to tap into it.
That's so true. And right? So often if you just pause, even as an executive, if you pause and think and just get intentional about what do I want to create? What's the impact I want to create in the community that I'm in? It's the same kind of questions. And that's the same energy that we all get to play in.
1,000%. So, because we've said the magic P word a few times over the course of this show, how are you giving yourself permission to pause?
Well, my morning rituals are really special to me, and in taking time every morning to slow down, to make time for meditation, to make time for journaling. I just got a Peloton, which I'm super excited. It got delivered yesterday. I did my second ride this morning. So that's becoming another part of that morning ritual. So creating space to let ritual be every morning before jumping into your day. A couple things I have been reading the book, The 5 a.m. Club.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not
Robin
sure.
Sharma. Mm-hmm.
Robin Sharma. I'm not sure that I want to be up at 5 a.m. every morning, but there's something about the consistency of showing up in a ritual every day, and making it your own. So I think that's really important. Now, I just came off of Ignite, right? And I think, leading up to my Ignite event conference, that was a huge amount of work, right? There's just so much work going into a 3-day conference.
Definitely.
And after it was done, we closed on a Saturday. I had Sunday, I laid on the couch and did nothing. Monday through Thursday, I had a set of things that I had to get accomplished. I was enrolling new clients and that sort of thing, having those kinds of conversations. On that Friday, we left to go on vacation for about 10 days. And it was, the beautiful thing was my computer broke the day before we left. I was going to take it with me. It broke.
That willful spirit.
I had to take it to the computer store, and they're like, yeah, well, we're not going to be able to fix it today, but you can have it, and I'm like, well, I'm leaving in the morning. And they're like, well, you'll have to get it when you get back. And I didn't have to take a computer with me. And I'm like, and I didn't need it, right?
Right.
I turned it off for those 10 days. And then I came back on Monday and it was just so beautiful. And, it's all, that pause reset me. I got to walk on the beach every day. I got to spend time with family. That sort of thing was so important to just slow down. And I feel so refreshed this week, right?
Yeah.
So that pause is so important.
No, I love it. I'm laughing so hard. I'm trying not to laugh into the microphone. I know Kami is like, what is she doing? Why does she keep moving back from there? Because I'm hearing that willfulness pop up. You're like, oh, because I was going to take the computer, right? Like on my 2-day vacation after being on 10s for, all the things that you did for those beautiful women in the room that you had for the Ignite conference, and then the post kind of follow up. You were still on 10 and was about to continue on some level.
I totally was.
Right? And the universe was like, no.
Nope. We're not doing that. You're not doing that. We've just pulled that little baby off your plate. So
exactly, which I appreciate, and I hope you guys do too that are listening, because there's no perfection in this, right? You know, Kami is a huge expert in her field and what she does, and I'm the #1 balance and relationship advisor in the world who still practices techniques for balance and relationship. Okay, like it's important because you know that yourself, your default, your old survival skills will kick in when you're exhausted.
Yeah,
right.
It's so true.
They come up, and you were of a mind to not throw a fit in the Geek Squad store or wherever you were and say, you know what, I hear the message. Let me lean
Here's
in
my
and
computer.
Accept. Exactly. Like, just go ahead and take it. Because, you know, maybe 15, 20 years ago, Kami would have been like, well, I'm not leaving until this is done because I have a plane to catch, or, you know, whatever the case is the next day. Yeah. But you allowed yourself to lean into it. So I hope you guys listening hear that it's okay if you make a mistake. And even if you're an expert in your field and a guru or a master, whatever the terms people are using now, it's okay for you to have a lesson come back up. The big difference is, are you listening and applying this time, which you did.
And may we always be learning and growing, because if we're not, that just means we're not listening, right? I mean, it's just, that's going to be, and I know that, you know, I'm going to be learning something to my dying days, and that's a good thing.
Don't get me started. That would be a whole nother podcast show. I always say the worst sentence in the world is, I already know. Yeah. Right? Yeah. When we say that to ourselves, because we have it all together, it's the worst thing that we can do for ourselves. Yeah. Forget other people. So, how can people connect with you and learn more about Kami and Ignite and the horses and the weird big bears that you weren't afraid of, and just like all of it to be more extraordinary?
Yeah. Well, so the best place to be in my community is on Extraordinary Women Connect, which is on Facebook. It's a Facebook group, and it's a group that's put together for connecting great women to great women. And we're talking about raising up your voice, your visibility, and how you're showing up in the world and growing your business. So that's a really fun place to be. And I have just extraordinary women in that community that I'm always connecting people on it. So that's a good place to join me. KamiGuildner.com is my website. And I am active on Instagram now. That is my new space that I just said yes to finally a few months ago. And so I'm building that community there as well.
I love it. And Kami's being shy, guys, because she has a fantastic, award-winning podcast, do I dare say. That is amazing.
And you've been a guest on it. So Extraordinary Women Radio is my podcast.
I was waiting for that plug.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
yeah.
And
you were, and you were one of my favorite guests. I loved having you on as a guest. So.
Thank you. You're so sweet and so kind to me, and so peaceful. Do you guys hear the peace? Like, are you feeling it? That's what I'm talking about. Kami, you are a fantastic friend of the CEO of the show, and I cannot wait to be in physical space with you again when I get the all clear from my doctors, and we'll be Peloton buddies, because I've had a Peloton since right before all of this stuff has happened. Yeah. I couldn't get on it. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So connect with me on that, because that's a fun thing that I just started. I'm starting to make friends on Peloton. I'm like, oh, good. I'll have somebody hold me accountable.
Now, you'll be holding me accountable. My butt hasn't been on anybody's bike.
Yeah, mine either. I can tell you, I felt it. And I'm doing the beginner classes right now. So.
Nice. Yeah. So we'll be Peloton buddies. For anybody that's listening to this, do not friend me for at least 60 days, because you'll be like, I can't. She's doing like 5 miles an hour. I can't do this. So just wait 60 days and then friend me, and then we can be buddies. Awesome. Kami, you're amazing. Thank you so much for stopping by the Balance Bully podcast, and I cannot wait to talk to you again.
Thank you, Naketa.
Balance Bully listeners, I know it was the best way to wrap up the year 2021. We thank you for all the gifts, for all the blessings, and definitely for all the lessons. And we are grateful to let you bid adieu and move us into 2022. Y'all thought I could rhyme. I didn't, but that moment right there, that was hot. Somebody call Jay-Z. All right. I'm so grateful for all of you guys. I'm looking forward to next week with you. We are back in our season flow. We are super excited to be with you and looking forward to all of the new things that I just won't even seed. I'm just going to let you have the rest of your 2021 and enjoy it as you get ready for what the new year is bringing, because you deserve it. You are worthy, and you should receive every good thing that is coming your way. I'm Naketa Ren Thigpen, and I look forward to seeing you next week.